Hello and welcome back for another Brain Coach tip. I'm Jan Bedell, the Little Giant Steps Brain Coach. Thank you for joining me today to become more equipped to help your gifted child be successful in school and in life. You know, it's important to raise a well-rounded individual. You don't want to have that highly intelligent adult that doesn't have common sense or rides his bicycle to work in his pajamas. Before we start with the specifics of how to enhance the life of your gifted child, I want to make you aware of our sponsor, Little Giant Steps. That name came about as we observed little neurodevelopmental steps that changed lives by causing giant strides in building strong pathways in the brain. It's these pathways built by stimulating the brain with specific, short, and consistent input that changes the brain and a person's function is accelerated. Little Giant Steps has been equipping families with brain-enhancing activities that can be done at home for more than 20 years. What we see is that children previously struggling with reading and math make gains of over a year or more in just 4 months. Children that have more severe issues have gains in physical, social, and academic areas. And then those children that are gifted are released to their full potential. It's such a privilege to bring such life-changing information to you. No matter what you're trying to accomplish with your children, helping the brain to work better will get you closer to your goals. Little Giant Steps offers you help you need for your situation. Take a look at our website, littlegiantsteps.com, and then give us a call so we can work together to find solutions that you're looking for. Call 972-758-1260. We're here to help you. Just give us a call. That number is 972-758-1260. Also, please let your friends know about this podcast and visit our YouTube channel that will be available in late January 2018. Send your friends to braincoachtips.com for more podcasts like these, or if you're more of a visual learner, search YouTube for Brain Coach Tips. Again, that will be in late January 2018. It's very important to understand that the neurodevelopmental approach for life applies whether you have typically developing, gifted, struggling learners, or anywhere in between in your home. Each child has a brain, and some of the same root causes of those inefficiencies can apply to all those different situations. I happen to live in a multi-generational household. That means my husband and I, and my daughter, her husband, and our 3 grandchildren all live together in one house. It is an amazing experience. In a few weeks, I'm going to have an interview with my daughter about that very subject, so you can hear it from her perspective as a young mother and from my perspective as a grandmother. You know, every grandparent thinks their grandchildren are just the top of the heap, you know. You just would have to wait until you have grandchildren to just sense that kind of situation. But my grandchildren really are way at the top of the heap there. I have 3 grandchildren. The oldest is 6, and that's a girl. And we have a boy that's 4 years old and a 15-month-old girl. So it's just very busy and exciting around here. And I really do believe that we have some children that are in the gifted range. We haven't had them tested, of course, but just from interaction with them, they are very, very smart. Of course, we did neurodevelopment with them from the very beginning because that's my background, and they were born at home. And so it was really easy to influence and help my daughter with some of those things that I knew to do that would enhance their abilities. If you want to learn more about those early years and what to do there, listen to podcast number 29 and number 30. When does homeschool really begin? And you'll get some ideas of the things that we did very early on to help their system integrate so the 2 sides of the brain really work well together. One question you probably have on your mind, because it's on our mind all the time, is how do we keep ahead of these gifted children and help them be well-rounded, highly functional individuals? It's not just a matter of intelligence, you know. It's how well the brain is organized to use that intelligence. It really makes a huge difference. You know, we have a certain IQ, but there's responsibility on our end to stimulate that brain so that those connections are made so it can be working really well. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. And if you have a computer, it has a certain amount of smart. We talk about how fast it is, how big the hard drive is, how much RAM we have, the short-term memory, and all that kind of thing. So all that it's in there to be able to utilize. But if that computer is hooked up to, say, a dial-up connection, like we used to have when computers first started coming out, or even DSL today, it's going to function not as well and not up to its full capacity. Not anything like if it was connected to FiOS. It would be faster, it would be working better. It's just amazing the difference. The intelligence of the computer didn't change at all. It's just the function changed tremendously. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about enhancing these gifted brains. One way to keep ahead of the gifted child is to do what I call homeschooling along the way. Now, of course, if you're not homeschooling, these techniques also work for children that are in school. You just don't have as much time that these teachable moments would just naturally occur. I want to share with you a few of these things that I encourage you to look at and take advantage of all those little teachable moments. One thing we do very consistently is when we cut a sandwich, we talk about fractions. We cut a sandwich in squares or in triangles, so we talk about geometry. In the fraction department, we talk about, do you want your sandwich cut into 4 pieces or just 2 pieces? And then we say, when we give it to them, oh, your sandwich is cut into fourths. You have 4 parts that made one whole sandwich. When you do this kind of thing, explaining to them what fractions are, when they come to that later on, it's not that very abstract concept is very easy for them. They just have experienced it multiple times. It goes back to that frequency, intensity, and duration that we've talked about over and over in the podcast. You do that every day and they go, oh, my sandwich is cut in half. There's 2 pieces to 1/2 over here, 1/2 over there. During lunch, you might say, oh, you've eaten half of your sandwich. You've eaten 1 part of the 2 that were there. Just those kinds of things make it where they see, hear, and feel those kinds of things multiple times in a week, and then it just makes sense to them. With a dice game, for instance, you notice the value of the dice at a glance. You're going to teach them, roll the dice and say, oh, you can count it at first for a very young child, and then roll it and just look at it and say, oh, that's 3. And you can expand that concept to 1 dice plus another dice. You can count all of them, and then just at a glance, soon they'll be able to just look at those dice and see that made 8 or whatever the combination is. One thing you can do in the phonics or letter recognition is just draw attention to the first letter of a word, maybe on a yogurt container, and input the letter and the sound. Oh, this is Yoplait. It starts with Y. Yeah, Yoplait, that kind of thing. You might point out phonograms that you're studying in a book that you're reading with the child. You just stop and go, oh, there's that EA in read. EA says E in read. That kind of casual reinforcement just helps them remember because of that frequency, intensity, and duration. It took a very short amount of time, maybe 2 seconds, 5 seconds at the most. And if you do that frequently, the next time they see the EA, they start to point it out and say what it is. So that adds intensity too, because it's very quick and very interactive. So that intensity is there and that frequency. It's just amazing what that concept of frequency, intensity, and duration can do. If you want to learn more about that, just go to podcast number 3, The Keys to Learning Anything. It'll give you a good idea about that as well. I do mention this very specifically and give you an exercise to do in the podcast Organizing Einstein, which would also be something you might want to listen to because it's definitely on this same topic of the gifted. Another resource I have planned to come out soon is an episode that I'm going to release in the near future called Homeschooling Along the Way, which will give you many of these examples of things that I just talked about with the fractions and the phonograms and that kind of thing, but much more expanded. So look for that. One way you can stay ahead of these gifted children is to provide educational TV. One of the programs that my grandchildren watch is Wildcrats. And I just have to tell you the story of Carter when he was 3. He had gotten rain boots, and so he had his rain boots on because it had rained the day before. He had his rain boots and his shorts, and he was out in the driveway where it's sunken in a little bit and it makes a little pool. He's stomping around in this puddle, and I come along and ask him what he's doing, and he said, "Well, pretend this is the ocean, and you see those yellow things in there? Those are barnacles. And now it's low tide, and we're able to see the mussels." So he was just going right off of that show that he had seen recently and applying it to something in real life. It was amazing. So educational TV can really feed their interest, and then you can find out what they're interested in, and then you can expand on that. If he wanted to look more about the oceans, we could do some Googling or check out some books from the library and things like that to just increase his knowledge of something he's interested in. That's another way to use intensity, is with their interest. Of course, we advocate working on the whole individual to create that FiOS connection that we talked about in the gifted child's brain. So if you are homeschooling a child that's 3 to 6 years old that's gifted, you might want to consider early learning foundations. We work on the lower levels of the brain so that the two hemispheres can communicate. That helps to organize your thoughts, help organize your space, and you will see that they just become a more organized person. They can write more organized papers when they're older, when their brain is organized. So it's just global benefit to help that lower level organize. And then we work on tactile stimulation. If the brain can't feel the hands, how in the world can the brain move those hands to write the letters neatly like you want them to? We're also going to work in this program, Early Learning Foundations, with auditory processing. And to find out all the major benefits of that, you can look at Best Kept Secret in Education podcast, and be sure to go to the littlegiantsteps.com website to get the free test kit for auditory and visual. You'll learn how to test for that and things to do to enhance it. It is incredible when you combine high intelligence with a well-functioning brain connection that has high processing. That means their short-term memory is working really well. It's bringing the function of that computer up dramatically. The Early Learning Foundations program also includes math. The level 1, like if you have a 3-year-old that goes, "Where's my school?" and you're already running around trying to get the older ones homeschool done, you don't even think about him being in school. But if you will do these 1 to 2 minute things during the day, it's very intense, and you'll get pre-reading, pre-writing, and pre-math skills through the Early Learning Foundations. In level 2, this is basically a kindergarten functional level. That includes math facts as well. The rapid recall system is what we use to input information so that their math facts are just instant, and math goes really well for them because they're advanced thinkers and they can think these things. But if their math facts aren't good, then they're not going to be able to progress quickly, and it's going to be a labor instead of a love for them oftentimes. In Early Learning Foundations Level 3, it takes that child into and through 2nd grade math skills. And when you include all the neurodevelopmental activities, it makes a really amazing foundation for all their future academics. So with Early Learning Foundations Level 3, you're getting advanced math, because if your child is just 5 or 6 and they can go through 2nd grade math, that's easy to do with this. And they get the neurodevelopmental foundation that they need, they will just be skyrocketing. The level 3 also gives addition and subtraction math facts in there, so they'll have those down before they get through that program. If your child just needs to work on math facts, that rapid recall system is sold separately, so you can look at that on the Little Giant Steps website. If you have a math program that you just love, or your child maybe is in school, we have created an Early Foundations Neurodevelopmental mini program that has the stimulation from the Early Learning Foundations program, but doesn't include the math. That's an option as well that you can do. This program will change every 3 months to make sure the brain is continuing to develop in 6 strategic areas of development: visual, auditory, tactile, language, mobility or movement, and manual, or the use of the dominant hand. It stimulates all of those areas. If you have a child that is gifted in math like my granddaughter Kinsey, you don't want to bore them with grade equivalent curriculum just because of their age. Now, Kinsey loves math, and so I've used the visual circle math from Little Giant Steps with her. She's currently 6 years old, but understanding addition and subtraction of multi-digit numbers with borrowing and carrying, as well as starting the understanding of multiplication. The visual circle math is a way to help the child see what is happening in every operation, and it's used to move the child along in their computation abilities at their own speed instead of a curriculum that's designed for an average student. It uses frequency, intensity, and short durations to accomplish this. So you'll want to look at that for those that are really loving math and want to move ahead in that. Then you can always use a curriculum for other aspects like measurement and those kinds of things that go with math as well. So after the computation or mechanics of how to do a particular operation is mastered, you use the skill in word type problems. Kinsey and I just the other morning before breakfast were sitting at the table and talking a little bit, and we were talking about ages. She understands the subtraction of multi-digit numbers. So I set up a problem for her to subtract the year it was now from the year I was born to figure out my age. We had just figured out my age, so I said, let's figure out the difference between our 2 ages. Now, in my mind, I was going to subtract her age from mine, but before I could write it down, she said, let's take the year I was born and subtract it from the year you were born to find the difference. I thought that was pretty amazing. It really seemed like the amazing divergent thinking that happens with a gifted child. There is one other thing here that I want you to be aware of. Some children are held back from their full potential because of the chemistry of their body. It's just not working well. I believe God has supplied the second treasure of my life to steward and get the word out about. The first treasure being neurodevelopment, of course. The second treasure helps the chemistry of the body work the way it was designed by God. If you, your child, or someone you know is having issues with their immune system like frequent colds, or they're having eczema, heavy metal toxicity, if candida is an issue, or there's an autoimmune issue, hypersensitivity, a lot of children are having those kind of things that distract the gifted child with their sensory system, where they can't even pay attention to stuff because they're hypersensitive to touch and noises and tastes and smells. This could be from the chemistry of their body not working correctly. I encourage you to set up a free metabolic consultation. In this particular type setting, I can get to know the situation better and see if this treasure that I found is something that can help you. When you eliminate the chemistry or metabolic stressors, everything works better for the child. You can just click on Metabolic Consultations on the homepage at littlegiantsteps.com, and we'll start the process of scheduling that free consult for you. As we address the chemistry or metabolic issues and bring the neurodevelopmental approach to work at the root cause of the developmental factors, I'm finding it to be a dynamic combination. Before we leave this subject today, there's another way I just thought of to advance your gifted child, and that is to casually but methodically advance their vocabulary. One way to do this is I just encourage you to have meals with your family. There's opportunity to ask questions when adults are talking in a higher level vocabulary typically. Whenever you're talking to your child, use that high vocabulary that you have and explain the higher level words along the way. In other words, you just say that higher level word, and then as you're saying it, you just explain it. I found myself needing to do this as we were reading Charlotte's Web to a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old when it talked about the rat moving stealthily toward Wilbur's food. So we had to say, oh, he was going cautiously and trying not to be seen. He was sneaking around. That's just explaining that vocabulary as you go through it. Casually brings up that vocabulary as they hear it over and over. Well, that's all the time I have for today. Don't forget the other 2 Brain Coach episodes for Gifted. They're called Organizing Einstein, Part 1 and 2. You can also find that on YouTube at the Brain Coach Tips channel. Don't forget to visit the littlegiantsteps.com website for resources to make the brain work better. And be sure to get the free auditory test kit, don't forget about that, to build that short-term memory ability. It's a major factor in releasing the full potential of that gifted child in your home. Please stay tuned to braincoachtips.com where you'll receive more brain-enhancing tips to make life and learning easier. For now, it's the Brain Coach signing off and wishing you a wonderful day.